The first 30 minutes after you wake up may be shaping your brain more than the next 12 hours. Yet most people spend that time doing things neuroscientists warn against. These habits seem harmless, but they can quietly damage focus, memory, mood, and long-term brain health. In fact, most people do habit number 8 within 10 minutes of waking, and it sabotages their entire day without them even realizing it. 1. Skipping hydration. Did you know that we start the day with our brains already running a bit below full capacity? You might even wake up feeling fine, but biology wouldn't agree. Breathing, temperature regulation, and basic metabolism slowly use up water overnight, so you begin the morning slightly dehydrated. The problem is that even small drops in hydration can affect how efficiently the brain works. Your neurons rely on a very precise balance of water and electrolytes to send signals properly. If your mornings often feel like the brain needs time to warm up, it's because your body is still catching up. What makes this especially important is timing. Thirst comes late. By the time you actually feel it, your performance has already been subtly affected. Neuroscientists explain that what you do in the first 60 to 90 minutes after waking affects your cognitive performance, mood, energy, and focus for the entire day. As unbelievable as it may sound, it even affects sleep quality the following night. The best option is that you have a glass of water ready on your nightstand and drink it as soon as you get up. This will help you more than coffee ever could, especially if you are used to eating something sweet with it. 2. Eating a sugary breakfast. As it turns out, what feels like a quick energy boost in the morning can actually make it harder for your brain to stay focused later on. Many people think that sugary foods are the perfect solution for those mornings when you wake up a bit groggy and want something fast to fix the feeling. The truth is different. When you eat a high-sugar breakfast, your blood sugar rises. In response, insulin kicks in to bring it back down, and your brain is very sensitive to that pattern. The systems responsible for focus and working memory rely on a fairly stable supply of energy. When blood sugar rises and falls quickly, it's harder to hold attention. Mental effort feels slightly heavier, and distractions become easier to slip into. What most people notice comes after: a mid-morning dip in focus, a bit of irritability, or the feeling that everything takes more effort than it should. But by then, the original trigger is already out of mind. That's where things get misleading. The sugar feels helpful in the moment because it does give you a quick lift, but that lift is short, and it's followed by a drop that quietly reduces how stable your focus feels. Over time, this can get you addicted to quick fixes just to feel normal again. Prioritize protein early in the day. Roughly 25 to 35 grams is enough to help stabilize blood sugar response, support satiety, and provide the brain with a more consistent energy environment to operate in. 3. Jumping directly into complex work. Another important piece of information is that the brain actually moves through different operating states in the morning. This is exactly why the first demanding task you choose can shape how the rest of your focus feels. If you wake up and, instead of letting your mind ease into the day, you immediately push into problem-solving, decision-making, or structured tasks that require steady focus, you will probably find yourself struggling through the day. Even though this kind of effort feels productive, like you're getting ahead before distractions show up, in reality, your brain is still finishing the shift from sleep into full waking control. During sleep, different brain systems fall out of sync. When you wake up, attention, memory, and decision-making systems are still realigning and finding their rhythm again. So when you jump straight into complex work, you're actually asking those systems to coordinate before they've fully settled. The result is friction. Thoughts take longer to form. Decisions are harder to make, especially important ones. Focus feels like it's there, just not quite. And the brain falls into thinking, bad kind. It treats the first high-demand task as a kind of template for how intense the day is going to be and tries to adjust. It rarely succeeds. More often than not, you end up starting the day in a kind of overstrained mode that's harder to maintain as time passes. The pattern will sound familiar. Early work feels unusually heavy, followed by mental fatigue or inconsistency later, even if nothing about the workload has changed. Try to start with lighter, lower-demand tasks, things like simple organization, reviewing information, or easing into structure. If that doesn't work, try changing the mental tasks with a short workout. This way, your mind can fully align before you ask it to go deep. Remember, deep work is best done with a clear mind. Wait for that moment, and the friction will disappear. 4. Skipping light exposure. And if you are also one of those people who wake up and just stay indoors, we have more bad news. It feels comfortable, sure. Curtains closed, kitchen light on, maybe the phone screen for a while. An hour goes by, sometimes 2, before they even see the sky, and their brain is keeping track. There's a tiny cluster of neurons in your hypothalamus called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, your brain's master clock, and every morning it's trying to sync up with the outside world. Early sunlight is how it does that. Neuroscientists have spent years studying this, and the mechanism is pretty direct. Bright light hits your eyes in the first hour of the day, and it suppresses the melatonin still hanging around from the night. It kicks off a cortisol pulse that drives alertness. It sets the timing for when your focus peaks, when your energy dips, when your mood systems come online. When you skip that, and most people skip it daily, mornings get foggier. The first few hours feel like you're thinking through gauze, and then at midnight, you're strangely wired, staring at the ceiling, because your whole rhythm has drifted later without you registering it. Stretch that over weeks, and the effects get more concrete. Schmidt's research has tracked measurable declines in working memory, decision-making, and emotional regulation. The brain's running every system out of sequence, and it doesn't self-correct. It just keeps drifting. Get outside within 30 minutes of waking, even 10 minutes, even overcast. Outdoor light on a cloudy day is still dramatically stronger than anything indoors. 5. Staying inactive. You wake up and stay still. You don't go back to sleep, but you don't exactly start the day either. What you do is sit on the edge of the bed and just stare at the wall, possibly even go to the bathroom and make yourself a cup of coffee. But your body still doesn't shift gears. You sit again and continue doing nothing. Sleep and wake are full body modes. When you stay inactive after waking up, your nervous system doesn't get the movement signals it uses to confirm the transition is complete. So parts of your brain stay in sleep mode. There's lower arousal, slower signal transmission, reduced readiness for effort. More and more problems start to show. Blood flow increases more slowly when you don't move. Body temperature takes longer to rise. Even balance and muscle engagement, the basic input your brain uses to know if it should be active, it stays muted. A kind of in-between state where you're conscious, but not fully online. Wakefulness systems like dopamine and norepinephrine rise more efficiently when the body is in motion. Without early movement, that rise is slower and less coordinated. So motivation, focus, and drive lag behind baseline for longer than they should. Stand up immediately after waking up. Walk for a few minutes. Take a shower. Not a hot one though. 6. Taking a scalding hot shower. Most people try to force themselves awake by taking a hot shower. The moment you step in, it does feel like it's working. Your skin reacts instantly. Your breathing changes. Even your heart rate jumps a bit. There is most certainly a sense of stimulation that gets interpreted as alertness. In reality, this is a stress response layered on top of a system that still hasn't fully stabilized from sleep. Your nervous system treats extreme heat as danger. So instead of continuing the natural wake-up process for movement and rising body temperature, it shifts into regulation mode, managing heat, adjusting blood flow, doing everything to control that sudden spike in sensory input. If you do this for a longer time period, your nervous system learns the pattern. Mornings start with stress. This is why the body starts leaning toward a stress response earlier and more easily. Now, imagine what happens to your brain if you do this in the first 10 minutes of waking up, and you have been doing it for years. And if you thought that taking a cold shower is a better option, think again. Water that's too cold produces the same amount of stress. Take a normal or slightly cool shower. It will do the trick just fine. 7. Stressing out. Taking an unpleasant shower isn't the only thing that destroys your brain with stress before the day has even properly started. Most people start absorbing a steady stream of alarming information within minutes after waking. Maybe your parents are having a fight, or you heard something on the news. You might think that's fine, because you're used to it. It's not, though. Your amygdala starts treating each one like a potential threat, and your prefrontal cortex, the part handling focus and reasoning, gets pulled in a different direction every few seconds without ever finishing the last one. Your attention never actually settles. Each new thing reopens a loop before the last one closes. At the same time, stress chemistry rises, even without real action demands, pushing cortisol higher and pushing your body into a state of alertness it doesn't actually need. When this happens early in the day, it sets a baseline that makes neutral situations feel emotionally heavier than they are. And because negative information is processed faster and remembered more strongly than neutral input, whatever hits you first in the morning tends to color how you read everything else for the rest of the day. Delay exposure to emotionally charged information as much as you can. If possible, delay checking your phone as well. 8. Reaching for your phone immediately after waking. Apart from being the primary source of stressful information input, your phone is probably the biggest cause of poor morning habits in general. But even so, neuroscientists point out that a staggering number of people turn to their phones during the first 10 minutes of waking up. Now, we have already established what the natural light delay does to your brain, but there is one more reason. Checking your phone as soon as you wake up sabotages your entire day. In some cases, your week, your month, even. The brain's reward system easily gets hooked on constant novelty, as fast-scrolling information trains it to expect constant updates instead of sustained focus. After a while, it becomes genuinely harder to stay focused on one thing for long, and you become more likely to chase distractions. Try to get through the first hour of your day without staring at the screen. This is when the cortisol awakening response happens, so try your best to make your first morning light be natural. If you are too lazy to get outside, at least open the window and let it sink in. More importantly, do not let negative thoughts ruin the experience. 9. Negative self-talk and mental complaints. You might not realize this, but the morning is the worst part of the day for negative thoughts about yourself or your life. It seems harmless because it stays internal, but the brain treats those thoughts as anything but meaningless background noise. Neuroscience research on internal speech shows that self-referential thinking consistently engages the medial prefrontal cortex, a region involved in identity modeling and self-assessment. In simple terms, this is the part of the brain that continuously updates the question, what kind of state am I in right now? This is why small repeated phrases like, I'm tired, or this is going to be a long day, do way more damage than many would suggest. The repetition trains the baseline. Over time, your attention can start gravitating toward things that reinforce the mood or mindset you began the day with. Energy feels lower, tasks feel heavier, and progress feels less noticeable. Not necessarily because reality changed, but because your perception of it did. Interrupt the first complaint. If you can't do it mentally, shift into a physical anchor like standing up, washing your face, or focusing on one neutral sensory detail. 10. Snoozing. What feels even more harmless is hitting snooze. After all, you're just taking a few extra minutes, maybe 5, maybe 10. It feels like a small extension of rest, a way to ease yourself into the day instead of being forced awake by an alarm. But from a neurological perspective, snoozing creates one of the most inefficient transitions the brain can go through. The moment an alarm wakes you up, your brain begins shifting out of sleep mode. Systems that support alertness start ramping up, body temperature begins to rise, and your brain starts reorganizing itself for wakefulness. When you hit snooze, you interrupt that process and push the brain in the opposite direction. For a few minutes, it tries to slip back towards sleep. Then another alarm hits and forces the whole system to start over again. Often, that cycle repeats more than once. The brain gets a series of mixed instructions. Wake up, go back to sleep, wake up again. Who knows how many times? What makes this especially frustrating for the brain is that those short snooze windows are often too brief to restore real sleep, but long enough for you to drift back into lighter sleep stages. When the alarm cuts that off again, you often end up with stronger sleep inertia, the grogginess, mental fog, and sluggish thinking you're trying to avoid. In other words, the habit meant to make waking up easier actually makes it a lot harder. If you use the snooze button every day, your brain can also start treating alarms like something optional. The action is no longer guaranteed. Set your alarm for the latest time. You can realistically get up and commit to standing up as soon as it goes off. It gets easier with time. Which of these 10 habits are you guilty of the most? Let us know in the comments and subscribe to our channel for more.